Are you ready to live more authentically and explore who you truly are? Would you love to know how to get there? Hi, I am Jamie Graham Duprey, teacher, author, coach, and host of The Second Half. Throughout the show, we will consider how we can be people who show up honestly, speaking in truth and love, and vulnerably, sharing and reflecting on life experiences. You will be encouraged to make connections in your life that will dare you to explore powerful growth, personally, vocationally, and spiritually. Are you ready to consider how to develop and nurture a growth mindset, take ownership of your life, and create action steps that lead you to being bold, brave, and healthy? The second half starts now. Good morning. Welcome. My name is Jamie Graham Duprey, and this is the second half. You are listening on Transformation Talk Radio. The show is live every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 9 o'clock Mountain. And we invite you to reflect on stories and experiences from your life and consider how those serve you and how you might take those as you move forward and consider the second half in how you show up. During the first episode, my spouse, Jeremy, who I have back here today. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Jamie.
We discussed some big questions, including wondering about who you are, what you're passionate about, and what you're doing about that. And we continue to unpack that as we go through. We also talked about what the phrase, the second half, means to us, what that evokes for us. In the second episode, my friend Rosella Ivey White and I talked about the word power and what it looks like to consider claiming our power and using that to serve others in our contexts. And today, Jeremy and I are going to discuss the word winning. So, Jeremy, why don't you maybe share what comes up for you when you think about that word winning?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's October. And that means in our household, we have baseball on, either on the radio or on the TV, almost every night or day. And so last night, I watched the Padres beat the Dodgers. And so the Padres were the winners. And that's not going to sit well with your brother.
No,
Yeah.
your brother-in-law.
So that, just sort of sports in general, but in this season, baseball, that comes to mind first. Somebody winning a competition.
Yes.
Or
Yep.
winning some event that, having more points than the other team or being the victor at the end of it. That's what comes to mind first.
Right. When we look at winning in that way, it seems pretty cut and dry, but there's so much more to it. And the word success really comes to mind, and how we define and look at success while we think about winning and what that means for us in either sports or in other settings in our lives. So to be true to the arc of this show, first we're going to talk about some experiences from our formative years. And when we look back and think about the word winning, we'll just talk about some experiences that we had and what we remember. So Jeremy, I'll ask you to share what that looks like for you.
Sure. I did not win as much as you did as I was growing up and as I was doing athletics and sports. But the season that comes to mind first for me was my junior year playing soccer. And our high school team had not been to the state tournament in a long time. I think maybe like a decade. And so that was one of our goals for that season. And we met that goal, which was cool. We won enough games in order to get there. But ultimately, we did not walk away as state champions. We did not have the trophy. We lost our last game. But I look back on that season and think, oh, wow, we won. I mean, that was a win for us for lots of different reasons, including, the discipline or the practice that it took to get to that point, the effort, the commitment to one another, the relationships with one another. and the fun that we had. I think that was a huge part of it. Like we had fun. So I look back at that season now and say, wow, we won that year.
Yeah, I hear that excitement even as you think about that time and the energy that it was a success.
It was, yeah, successful. Yeah, I would definitely name that as success. And even in some of my other sports experiences, went to college and I was a place kicker on the football team, and we didn't win many games. 4 wins one year, two the next, and then one each of the next 2 seasons. And so, but I look back on those two and recognize like I got better, our team got better, even though we didn't win games. There was improvement, there was discipline, commitment, relationships, all those things, and there was fun still. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to name.
A lot of lessons learned, which is the hope and the goal. And I think most of us know that going in. We hear that from our coaches, hopefully. We hear that from our parents, hopefully, other fans. But it can be hard to keep that in mind when maybe the score shows that
Yeah. And I do think there is value in like having the goal of winning. Like you want to strive for that. That's, we wouldn't want to not do that.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, like in baseball this year, there will be one team that strives and actually gets to their goal of winning the championship. 29 others, they won't, but it won't have been a failure.
Sure.
There will be successes in it too, even though they don't win the championship.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I want to make sure I bring up that First Corinthians. I think it's First Corinthians. I'll give you a pastor question in just a minute here about a scripture quote that makes me think of that and gives us a broader perspective in bigger picture of life with success and winning. But thank you for sharing your experience in high school.
Yeah, what about your experience? What about your
Oh,
winning?
would you like to hear about my experience?
I'd love to hear.
Oh, okay. So, a reason that I'm doing this podcast, I've mentioned this in the past couple episodes, is I'm trying to be intentional about entering into spaces where I can learn more about myself so that I can grow in my understanding of who I am, what I'm passionate about, what I'm doing about it, how I'm showing up, hopefully as authentically as possible. So, entering into spaces that are new and uncomfortable are going to almost always offer us an opportunity to do just that, to learn more about ourselves. So I wrote a couple books a few years back, which is when I shifted gears in my life from being an elementary teacher to starting out in life coach training, and then also writing more seriously than I ever had. And what came from that was 2 memoirs. My first memoir is called The Yellow Sports Bra, A True Story of Love, Faith, and Basketball. And that story is the one that comes to mind for me when I think about learning about winning, thinking about winning, and those formative years. So I go through in that book my 4 years as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, with the plot following each basketball season and what that looked like. And it's pretty obvious to me that even though that's the thread, the basketball seasons and how the games went, the bigger picture is a lot more to that. And what I heard you say, Jeremy, a couple times this morning is the relationships. You used the word commitment, you used the word discipline. In the end, that's what we hope to take away from that. And in my situation, we had a lot of fun because it's a little bit easier maybe to have fun when you're winning more consistently. You can build a lot of character either way, maybe winning or falling short. But in my case, by the time I was a senior, we did make it to state. We had always had that goal, like your point, you've got to plan to win. And we did win. And my classmates and I, there were 7 of us, that was actually our 100th win. And we had only lost 6 times in those 4 seasons. And we lost 0 games in our junior high seasons, like pretty pretty crazy when you think about it. What are
Yeah,
you smiling about?
yeah, that's a lot of wins for anybody. But yeah, for a group of high schoolers to only lose 6 and win 100, that's a lot.
It's pretty wild. So when I was growing up in those, that age, that was just really clear, like win the games, win the tournaments, win the championship. And then I wrote about my college years, and I did go on to play college basketball at Rocky Mountain College in Billings, Montana. And when I look back on that journey, it was quite different for a lot of reasons. New teammates, new space, I would say new goals, because the structure is very different. It's a longer season, there's more games. You have to manage classes, which you did in high school too, but it's just different. And so for me, I think an aha moment when I wrote this second book, The Green Clad Kicker, a true story of love, sports, and college, which the kicker is right here next to me.
Very handsome kid.
Very handsome with those cute little green shiny pants. And I found, while I was writing this book, The Green Clad Kicker, I found a quote or a letter. I found a letter written by my dad to me, and it was really powerful for me to reflect on that and synthesize that information with my first book and the message there, and it goes right along with us thinking about winning. So I'll read that before we head into our halftime break here. My parents sent me a sweet card to encourage me before postseason play started. My mom told me that no matter what happened in the playoff game, she thinks I am and always will be a winner in every aspect of my life. Mom writes me letters all the time, but not Dad. Maybe I will hang his letter up. Hi, baby. Well, it's tourney time and everything starts over now. You know more about crunch time more than anyone. You have become the Batlin Bear leader both on and off the court, and everyone will look to you to run the show and to get everyone positive and on the same page. This is a tall order, but there is no one more able to handle this role than Jamie Graham. We are extremely proud of you in all aspects of your life. Your accomplishments on the court are great, but that is just part of what makes you so special. Very few athletes get the opportunity to do what you are currently doing. It is long, physically draining, mentally taxing, and pressure-packed, but enjoy the moment as it will be over too soon. Look yourself in the mirror on Friday after the game and tell yourself you gave it all you had, win or lose. We will see you Friday. Have fun and play hard. You are only boyfriend, Dad. I reread the letter from my dad several times. The message is hitting me funny now. Growing up, I always thought the message from everyone was win. I mean, I know that was the message, and it remains a primary goal before taking the court each game. But when I read my dad's words now, I hear something different. I hear the emphasis on being a positive leader all the time, no matter the situation, and being intentional in encouraging teammates and getting everybody on the same page, focusing on finding ways to keep people together. So that's just a little excerpt from that. Yeah.
Great letter.
Yeah, it is. It's special to reflect on that. So we'll head into our halftime break here for a couple of minutes. So if you need to go grab a cup of coffee, drink of water, please just do whatever you need, but be back here in 2.5 minutes, and we'll keep talking about winning and success, and specifically for us, what we're learning in the parenting phase of this life when it comes to these two big things. So we will see you in just a couple minutes. Right, welcome back to the second half of the second half. This morning, my husband Jeremy and I are talking about the word winning, and the success comes up with that and how we define it. So we've been talking about when we grew up playing sports and our experiences in that, and then what we think about and what we've learned as we reflect on that now. So I just read a part of my second book, The Green Clad Kicker, where my dad had written me a note before our final tournament. And I was reflecting on the word winning and how as I grew up, I always just thought that was the goal, that was the message from everybody. You had to win, 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 and that was kind of it. But he put in things in perspective about the bigger picture, and so I'm just going to read a little bit more of that too, and then we'll talk about um, what we are dealing with in our lives now when we think about winning and success as parents. So here's the last part of this excerpt from The Green Clad Kicker. I know my dad played sports too, but to be honest, I have never sat down and tried to picture what that maybe felt like for him. It always seemed arbitrary, like a different lifetime, like those experiences are buried in the past. It seems obvious now, reading his letter, that of course those experiences are not arbitrary. They're not buried, not for him. They are part of my dad's story. They shaped his view of how to live life. And through him, those experiences have shaped me too. So I have been thinking about Dad's words a lot. And even though we did not end up with a quote winning record, I feel like the season was still worth the time, the effort, and the energy. Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on that?
And I just appreciate your dad's emphasis on success as it comes to leadership. You learned a lot from being a leader on that team, and he noted that, he highlighted it, and that's really important. Like when you don't walk away with trophies, there's still a lot of things that you can look at and call successful with any kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, so unpacking that is helpful. And then thinking about how we communicate that in different ways. I have coached basketball, high school basketball a few times over the years, or youth basketball. Jeremy is coaching some youth soccer now. He's coached some youth football. So we really want to take time and check in as far as what message we're sending to kids and even reminding other coaches in our spaces. So for us, this whole idea of winning and success and using sports or different extracurricular activities, teams, maybe music groups, things like that, to help guide kids and to help them learn about discipline and commitment, and all these things have been important to us. And I think lots of times as parents, the natural tendency is to encourage your kids to do what you did because that's what makes sense to you. So in our situation, our oldest, our daughter, she is a junior in high school now. She has had a very different experience in sports than we have, and it has really caused us all to take a deep look at why we do what we do, and defining and then adjusting and redefining success based on adversity and things that we can't control or maybe anticipate. So Jared, would you share a little bit about what our daughter Jordan's story has looked like?
Sure. Yeah, and my stories are usually shorter than yours. So so fill in where you feel like you need to fill in. But our daughter started running cross country in middle school and has had a commitment to that sport and to the team here in this town for a handful of years. She started running in high school and went to a cross country race after a couple challenging practices in which she experienced some fainting, and she actually fainted while running in a race, and that was pretty traumatic for her and for the coaches, the team, and for us as parents to see our child in that place, experiencing that, and then sort of like tried to do our best of, kind of protecting her while allowing her to still continue to try to run and participate and race. And a couple more times where she's fainted in races. Got to a point here recently in the last few weeks where we realized like she just can't do this anymore. She can't race. She can run, but she can't sort of push her body to the limit. And try to win the race. And so, yeah, it's really caused us all to start to look at what value there is in participating in a team, even when you're unable to like compete at the highest level. And so there's a lot there that she's processing, that we're processing. And yeah, it's really got us thinking differently.
Yeah, that's a great summary. This is the third year of high school for her, and her freshman year was arguably the hardest because not only did she have to stop racing in the season, she started playing basketball and had a similar situation where she stopped herself after running lines and then fainted again and then just felt terrible, had headaches for weeks, lots of fatigue, lots of other issues, lots of school missed. So we really had to shift gears, and this was new territory for us. And last year was a little bit better. We were still pretty cautious. There was frustration for her because she didn't get to compete in regions and she didn't get to go to state and compete at state, which is the very tangible, linear goal, the journey. And it's really hard for, especially a teenager, to understand and to feel like they're maybe a failure because they're not doing all these other things that are, focused on our cultural
Culturally.
expected of us. So that was hard. And then this year we came in with high hopes. She had such a great summer, ran 25 plus miles a week, except her heart rate would just get a little high. So we really started monitoring that, thought we had a new plan for what success looked like for her. And then down she went, and that was it. So I think when we think about this, we're like at the tip of the iceberg, but we just have a couple minutes left of this podcast today. I think what I am really encouraging everyone to think about is, take that time to reflect on what winning looks like for you, what success looks like for you, how you experienced that as a child, as an adolescent, a young adult, and then maybe since as a parent, maybe a coach, maybe just a bystander, maybe a fan or a referee, and thinking about how we communicate that to those around us, especially our kids, and think about what the real success looks like. And the last thing I want to leave us with is if Jeremy can just touch on some bigger picture thinking when it comes to winning and success. If you can share about that First Corinthians verse, running the race to win.
Sure. Yeah, well, yeah, there's a letter that Paul writes to a church and really encourages them to view, the goal of winning as something that you want to shoot for. But in this case, Paul is naming that he doesn't run a race to win any kind of trophy or to win or to be first. He is using that analogy to talk about sharing good news, sharing a gospel about being loved by Jesus, being free actually from needing to achieve, which is really quite amazing when you think about like the paradox of everything that we've talked about.
Right.
Like our faith really pulls us into seeing everybody as free from actually needing to achieve. And so there's winning there. He's saying that's the gospel we want to share. We want to pursue it as if we were racers trying to win a race or boxers trying to win a boxing match. But ultimately the end it is not winning a competition. It is proclaiming to everyone that they are all free and they are all winners. They're all beloved children of God. And so it's the discipline of doing that he's really emphasizing in that text from 1 Corinthians chapter 9.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great summary. So yeah, that's the takeaway that I want to leave us with this morning, is that the bigger picture is this freedom to not achieve, but to know that you are beloved children. And we can learn these lessons through things like sports, and that's great, as long as we find some way to keep ourselves in check, to keep other people in check. And that's what I would say is success at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's really good.
Well, thanks, Jeremy, for being here again this morning.
You're welcome.
Next week, my high school coach, Coach Linda Van Dyke, is going to be joining us, and she's going to reflect a little deeper on my high school years and what that was like for her as the coach in that situation. So please join us in the second and fourth Wednesday of the month on the second half. And thanks so much for listening. Have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening to the second half with me, Coach Duprey. Tune in on the second and fourth Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio, where you will be encouraged to make connections in your life that will dare you to explore powerful growth personally, vocationally, and spiritually. For more information about me, my courses, my coaching, and my books, and how I can support you on your journey, find me on my website, coachdupre.com. See you next time.